Yeah, shalom. Yep. So we begin Parshas Pinchas. V'davashem Moshe Leimer. Pinchas ben Eluzah ben Aaron Kohen Hayshav es Chosim al b'nei Yisrael b'kanis kanasi b'soif l'eklisias b'nei Yisrael b'kanusi. Well, we have just ending in Parshas. Yeah, you hear me? You hear me? You hear me? I don't know. So we end off in Parshas Balak. Really, like Parshas Pinchas is starting halfway through the story. So what happened was we have Zimri ben Salu. He lived like 400 years, and this the Chachamim tell us that's exactly. And so here goes the notion it's all about power. And what's been on a copy? Yakum and Taka, the week of the other way of name. So Pinchas, what was I going to say? Just get this. So there was Zimri ben Salu, and he was the Nasi of Shevet Shimon. Now it's interesting because going back a few hundred years, we find Shimon and Levi, right? They killed out the whole Shechem to save Dinah. And now we see that Pinchas, who's coming from Shevet Levi, and Zimri ben Salu, who's coming from Shevet Shimon, Pinchas is going to kill Shimon. Interesting, no? Exactly. Yeah. So this is very interesting what's happening here. So the Chachamim tell us something very interesting. That we learn from here you have to be a oyev teichachos. When Yaakov Avinu gave teichacha to Reuven and Shimon, that you can't do something like this. Shimon and Levi, you can't kill out a whole city. You do things under the radar. You secretly sneak in. You take Dinah. You do things you don't, because then you do things because now what you're doing is you're gonna make everybody come up against us. We're gonna have to fight against everybody. And that's actually, if you look in the Midrash, that's actually what happened. They started to have a war with all of the kings all around there, and kings came from all over to fight them. And there's amazing stories that talks about in the Midrash of the wars. And Baruch Hashem, they survived. But that's the Yaakov said, you don't do it because you're going to create war. You have to, you come in at night, you come ninja style, and Dinah disappears, and then you disappear in the night. That's how you do it. So, exactly. So now you can imagine that a very ruchnistic person, a very spiritual person, he would easily say, well, they're violating Dinah, right? They're violating her. So you could easily understand why someone would not understand what Yaakov Avinu is saying. And I'm sure they both took the Musar from Yaakov Avinu. They were very great. They're one of the Shiftei Ka. But Levi took the Musar 200%, 1,000%. And we see later on, Levi, we have the Shevet Levi, they work in the Beis HaMikdash, and the Kaihanim come from Shevet Levi, from Aaron, which is the brother of Moshe Rabbeinu. So, we see what it means, Oyhev Teichachos, that a person, it's an amazing trait to work on, that a person should be someone that likes to get Musar. He likes to hear how he could improve himself. So, that's what we learn. Amazing, it's just amazing when you see what's happening. So, there was a Magefa that started, that's because of this. What happened was, Bilam and Balak, right? We have the Parshas before Balak, right? This past week was a double whammy. But in Balak, we have Bilam and Balak. They're both coming to figure out how they could curse Klal Yisrael. And they don't succeed. So Bilam, they were promising Bilam a lot of money. That's why he came. He was a very greedy person, and he saw that it didn't work, but he still wanted. So what did he do? He went a backwards road. If you can't take the enemy front on, then you come from behind. They said, you know what? Make them be nichshal in avodah zara, and this is an arayas, and these two things Hashem hates very, very much. This thing Hashem hates very, very much, and if you make them nichshal in this, then you'll overcome them, and you'll be able to kill them out. So this is what they did. They set up like tons of booths with food, and they put a very old woman in the front of the booth. So people say, it's an old woman. And the Yidden would come to buy, fruits, vegetables, all different delights, water, and not just food, other things, clothing and all different types of things that they want to buy. And the woman, this old woman that was sitting in front would say, you know what, here we have, secondary merchandise. But if you go inside the tent, there we have first grade merchandise. So they went inside, and inside was a beautiful looking woman. And in there, and they would give them wine, and they would be megar the Yetzer Hara. They would stir up the Yetzer Hara, in the man, and they would say, if you want to be with us, bow down. They would first get them, bishul shikr, and then they would say, if you want to be with us, you have to bow down to this avodah zarah. You have to serve it. And unfortunately, many people fell to this, and in general fell to this. I would guess Shevet Levi for sure not. A very good chance Yehuda also not, but a lot of, we don't know exactly. Yeah, well, it makes sense because you could you could sort of see what happened between the, it wasn't the whole Shevet, it was a couple of people. Right. It's only Shevet Shimon we find that the head, you could assume that probably a lot of his Shevet fell to the Chet because the head of the Nasi. Yeah. So Zimri ben Salu, he took Kazbi Bas Tzur, and this was that she was the princess of Midian, and he was and Zimri ben Salu, who was from the Shevet of Shimon, he was 400 years old. And the Chacham tell us another thing, that sometimes the Yetzer Hara will lengthen a person's life in order to catch him, to get him to do a sin, chas v'shalom, to get him to be over an avera. So, sometimes you see like very evil people and they're living long lives. It's because Hashem doesn't want them in Gan, that He wants to give them everything down here. Nothing, they shouldn't have anything left when they come upstairs. Sometimes we could see righteous people, tzaddikim, that they're not having such an easy time, and that's because Hashem, when they come upstairs, Hashem wants it to be that there should be they should go straight to Gan Eden. If they did any type of chid, it should all be cleansed down here. So now Pinchas, seeing what's happening. Now we still have to, it's still a huge question. How could it be that Zimri ben Sul, he was a Nasi? That means he wasn't a nobody. How could it be that he did this? He knew he had to have known that it was wrong. So if he knew that it was wrong, why did he do it? Right, but we see that was, meaning they're now coming and making Klal Yisrael sin. Obviously, Hashem doesn't want you to take a wife. That would only give them more power to make more people sin. People say, "Oh, look, he took a wife. We could also." And so he must have known that it was wrong. The question is, why did he do it? So we're gonna have to get back to that in a moment. But what happened is, we start this week's Parsha. Pinchas was a kanoi. Someone was a zealotin. When it came to Hashem, he was moiser nefesh for the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He would put himself in danger. It's not easy. You have to get to the Nasi. There's guards. There's this. The Medrash says he had he used a walking stick, and on the top of the walking stick, instead of he unscrewed the spear part, the tip part of the spear, and he put it in his jacket, and that's how he got in with the weapon. But even if you got in, getting out, they could also kill you. So this was very dangerous what he was doing. He could have been killed. But he was a kanoi, and he went for Hashem. He did everything, and he went in there. And he caught them in the middle of the act, and he pierced them right through both of their bodies, right where they were doing the Avera. And he picked them up, and he started to run through the camp. And because of this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu stopped the Magefa, he stopped the plague. They probably didn't die right away, I'm saying, but even if they did, there's not an it. Oh, the Paraduma? Yeah. I hear. The answer is that even though Pinchas, he was the son of Elazar, who was the son of Aaron, but the din is, in order to be a kohen, it had to be that you weren't born yet. Meaning, the ones that were made a kain was Aaron Ubanav, only Aaron and his sons. But the grandchildren which were already born were not Kohanim. Only Aaron Ubanav and the children that come from them, that weren't born yet. But if you were born already, then you stayed a Levi. And since Pinchas was already born, he was one of the children that were already born, so he stayed a Levi. And we're going to see that because of this great act that he did, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to promote him and make him a Kohen. But without that, he would have only been a Levi. And the not to become Tameh is more severe by a Kohen than it is by Levi. And here he was only a Levi. And it could be that he didn't become Tameh also, because you don't die right away. If you stab someone in the head, he dies. But if you do it, down below, then the person doesn't die right away. So it could be let go of them, but he just ran through the camp and then threw them to the ground, And even if he did become Tameh, this was, if there's good reason to, then you're allowed to. And then now HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu and tells him. He says, "Go out and fight against Minyan." And especially since they caused the Nasi to sin, go out and avenge. And there was a huge Magefa, tons of Yidden died. Now Hashem is telling, go out and fight against them. So now they're starting to make a count. Count everybody that's 20 and up. And now we're going to have a lot of names. We're going to, right, each one has a count. And we could see sort of from the count how much of each shevet, did a chet. And it's not so clear also because when a Magefa comes out, it could even kill people that didn't sin. So it's still not clear exactly. There's a when HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes a Magefa, then the Satan has the right to kill people, and he doesn't differentiate between tzaddik and rasha. So, but there is a number here. We're just gonna skip all of the numbers. Okay. Now the question is, how could it be that Zimri ben Solo, how did the Nasi of Shimon, why did he do such a chet? So some Mefarshim want to say something amazing. That Zimri ben Solo, he saw that this is what's happening here is something that you need something drastic to stop it. So Zimri ben Solo said, if I do something, which is Zimri ben Solo, he didn't dan avodah zarah, but he just said, I'll marry the princess of Midian. And therefore that in itself, even though he's not doing a chet, right? Because he wasn't doing the avodah zarah, he wasn't falling to that trick, because in this case they're coming to him, he's not going to them, right? But still, since everybody is doing averis over here, he shouldn't have done it. And he says and he was hoping that someone like Pinchas would come along, something would happen, and he would be killed, and then people would get the message and they would stop. That was his plan. And even on this, the Gemara says that the Yetzer Hara waits. He sometimes gives a person a Richas Yomim to waiting till he does a chet, because even though you have a good cheshbon, but you can't, you can't do things like this. But sometimes a great person can make a mistake like this, and we find by the Inquisition, it's very interesting. There was the king, the what's her, Elizabeth, the king and queen. So they kicked out all the Yidden, but the problem is that the Yidden, they were the ones that doing all the financing and everything, and they needed them. So what they did is they offered, I don't remember to the name, but one of the big tzaddikim, who he was in charge of the finance, they told him that he's the only one, that if the one, he could stay with his family and could continue practicing Judaism if he could. And he said, no, I want to go with my people. If they're going into exile, I want to go with them. Absolutely amazing. But there was another person that they told him that if you do not become a Christian, go through that whole, holy water, that whole nonsense, if you don't do it, then we're going to kill all the Yidden. And for his great love for Klal Yisrael, he converted, and there's a whole, mystery exactly. Some people say that he was, I don't remember the name, I think it was that he was one of the, I don't remember, it's a whole cryptic history, but, and one of the other, and this other gadol that left, he says that it was like, he was saying that this is like a case of Zimri ben Salu, that even though they threatened to kill Klal Yisrael, but you're not allowed to do that. But out of his great love for his fellow Yid, he did it. But his great love, he had to have control of it when it came to doing something wrong. And it was said about him, woe to him, such a great person, losing his share to the world to come. These are all, this is all, very high, high level stuff that's going on. The Parshat we're reading, this is all very high level stuff. But sometimes we find that tzaddikim, for their great love for Klal Yisrael, they did things that, destroyed them. They destroyed their Gan Eden, but they just couldn't see another Yid getting hurt. And, it's not our place to judge them. We just have to know we can't do things like this. But, these certain things only Hashem can judge. So this is what happened over here. Now we continue. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after this whole ordeal, we have HaKadosh Baruch Hu explains how Eretz Yisrael is going to get split up. So the way the land in Eretz Yisrael is split up is you take all the families of each tribe, and the ones that have more, so let's see exactly now. So let's see Rashi over here. It's an interesting way, the way the land the Eretz Yisrael gets split up. So they did a goyrel. How did they split up the land? Now HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying to the shevet that has more people, they're going to be getting more land, and to the one that has less people, they're going to be getting less. But even though I'm telling you this is what's going to happen, the way that you split up the land is through a goyrel. And the goyrel is done al pi ruach hakodesh, that it's not just a stam raffle, but whoever gets picked, Hashem is causing that Reuven gets this and Shimon gets that. This is all, and therefore no one should have any tainas. It wasn't that anybody decided you should get this, you should get that. Everything was a goyrel, and Ruach HaKodesh worked over there. Was making things happen the way Hashem wanted it to happen. Now it's interesting that Shevet Levi is not part of the goyrel. We're going to see that Shevet Levi is not part of this goyrel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says they're special. They're separated from the rest of Klal Yisrael to be mines. And we're going to see later on when Klal Yisrael goes in Sefer Yeshua, that Moshe Rabbeinu in his time, he set aside 3 cities. And then Yeshua ben Nun, he set aside, I'm trying to remember, he set aside, I think it was 25 cities. So there were cities that were set aside for the Levium throughout Eretz Yisrael, for them to live in. Now we have the famous story that we have Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aaron, 2 very great men, and they go into the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies, where the Aron is, and they bring an Eish Zara. They didn't bring a fire that comes from heaven, or the fire, Nadav and Avihu, Aaron's sons. So they come and they bring a foreign fire. What does that mean? There was a fire on top of the Mizbeach, and the Medrash says that the fire came down from Shemayim, and the fire was b'demus aryeh. The fire looked like a lion crouching on top of the Mizbeach. And when you wanted to bring karbanos, or you wanted, let's say, to bring ketairas, you would take from that fire, as opposed to making your own fire. And when it says Eish Zara, that they brought a foreign fire, meaning they did not take the fire from the Mizbeach. Now it's saying the amount of how many Levi's there were. Now it says so let's see what it says over here. Let's see what Rashi tells us. We don't have a Rashi on it. Okay, so now we, a whole understanding what Nadav and Avihu, what were they doing? It's very, cryptic. What was going on? Why did they bring this Eish Zara? Something to look into. Vatikravna b'nai Slavcha ben Chefer ben Gilad ben Machar ben Menashe ben Menashe ben Yosef Shmais b'nai Macha. We're going a little more history over here, lineage. Now, what happened was we have the story right now. We're talking about the story Exactly. So that was the B'nai Slavchat, and very interesting, right? Even though their father was the guy that died because he was gathering sticks he was cutting down, cutting sticks to make a fire, and that's one of the Isurim on Shabbos. But the Gemara tells us that he was mechavin l'shem shemaim, and I think when we passed that story, we explained it over there that his point, he wanted to show how the severity of a serious Shabbos to be over, and he wanted to be an example. But again, it was a person with good intentions. However, when Hashem says not to do something, Hashem also knows what He's saying, and because of that would have been the second Shabbos that Klal Yisrael would have kept Shabbos, and then the Mashiach would have came. Now, exactly who would be Mashiach, I don't know, because right, Mashiach. Right now we say Mashiach ben David, right? David, Mashiach is coming from David, and specifically from his from so everything is everything from Shlomo HaMelech. So specifically from the children of Shlomo, the son of David. So who would have been the Mashiach? But I don't know exactly how it would have worked. It could be anybody could have been back then, and it didn't happen. So, but we see that the Gemara says he was mechavel l'shem shemaim. So we see what he was on a high level, and his daughters also were on a very high level. And he had a few daughters: Machla, Noya, Vechalka, Vechagla, Umilka. 4 daughters. And they came before Moshe and the Nesiim. Moshe Rabbeinu was with the Nesiim, Nesiei Ha'eda, the heads of the tribes. And where did they sit? They sat in the Oyel Moed, in the Mishkan, by the Oyel Moed. And yeah. Sure.